switching screens, but I hope everything is working right now. Let's see. Yep, there it is. So today we're going to talk about where and how to find the best innovation projects for your company. And I will introduce myself in a minute once we are at the right slide. But why do we pick this subject? We see that a lot of companies start to understand how to build a venture, or at least get a little bit more understanding of what an innovation strategy is, which we will also tip a little bit in this webinar. But then they're still kind of asking themselves, where can I find new opportunities? And if I find the right opportunities, how do I select the ones that I should invest in or that I should put more resources to? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So who am I? I'm Maarten van Kronenburg. I'm the founder and owner of BW Ventures. I've helped over 100 innovation projects. I think it's already over 200 projects in the past 5 years. My career started in the music industry, and after a few years, I decided to do more consulting in the innovation space. Fun fact is, in 2020, we also got named the second best accelerator of the Netherlands, which is always great to have such a prize. But that's who I am. Let's give the floor back to Lotte for a minute.
Welcome back. I cannot call myself an entrepreneur, but I can call myself pretty entrepreneurial, with a background in industrial engineering and innovation management, but always trying to create business out of ideas, mainly at TMC and former at Fontes University of Applied Science, where I try to indeed turn ideas into business, being responsible for the entrepreneurial lab, running over 15 projects in parallel, of course, in different stages of development, and at the same time also being a mentor and co-founder of several female tech and female founder initiatives. I'm very happy to be with you here today as well.
Cool. Let's continue. So just to name a few cases that we've helped, the Brightland Smart Service Center in Heerlen, we built a portfolio of 15 startups within 1.5 year, which means we had to look and select and search for basically over 90 startups to get to a selection of 15. So some of the principles that we've learned there will be shared in this webinar. But also with TMC, we started at the start of the COVID crisis, and we generated a lot of ideas and selected to 7 that we started working with, and 4 of them actually survived and created quite a substantial amount of revenue, but also a very big impact on society. So what is our core concept as BW Ventures in collaboration with TMC? We truly believe that innovation managers fail not because they don't know how to do lean startup, design thinking, build a fantastic team, create great products, or push great marketing campaigns, but they conduct these activities in the wrong order, and they lack a dedicated and measurable sequence to achieve a positive return on investment on their portfolio. And searching and selecting is also a very important process that you have to get in place. It's not just let's look for something out there, or let's do an ideation session and see what comes out. So that's what we're going to talk about. So where to start looking is the most important question to ask yourself when you start with searching for new opportunities. And what we always mention is, do not just start looking anywhere around you. It always starts with having a solid innovation strategy. And an innovation strategy, we've got our previous webinar was about an innovation strategy. So you can always look back to it. It will be in the email that you get after this webinar. But in an innovation strategy, it is clearly defined why you start innovating, which areas or ecosystems you should be active. So where are you going to innovate, and how you are going to innovate. Now, a question to you: Why is it so important to have a solid innovation strategy before you start searching or selecting any type of project? And that's a question to all of you. You can give your answers in chat or.
So, yeah, this is your moment to have the first interaction. If you would like so, of course, it's voluntary. You can either join us by using your mic and using the raise your hand button, or by typing your answer in the chat. So the question is to you, why is it so important to have a solid innovation strategy? Very curious to know your answers.
A lot of people talking, so that, or a lot of people typing, so that's
Yes,
a good idea.
I see. Totally agree. And for the people that already know us, we are not known for having super easy questions, but there's no right or wrong. We just really like the interaction and getting your feedback and your perspective, and sharing the perspectives actually. So don't hesitate to join and let us know. There's no right or wrong. There's just a great interaction.
I see more and more people typing.
Yeah. So
very curious to see the results.
Hopefully that helps.
Let's give a few more seconds. And once we are waiting, in last webinar, we talked a lot about what an actual innovation strategy is, and to create the right steps to build one. And you, as we just mentioned, you will get the link to watch it. Let's see, Renate. In order to define boundaries which give you guidance to reach your goals, to select the right innovations that will fit the overall strategy, that's what Jos mentioned. Innovation strategy gives direction, what the organization expects from and want to achieve with its innovation.
I see guidance, I see direction, and I see fit with an overall strategy. So
yeah,
it's pretty much live, I would say.
It is for the longer run, stable platform, target to go. Yeah. So what we've seen in practice is that if you do not have an innovation strategy, you just start to look everywhere. There are literally no boundaries. And as I've mentioned before, my career started in the music industry, and with the parallel to the music industry, if you're an electronic music artist, you've got endless possibilities of the types of instruments that you can use. But because you have this endless endless possibilities of instruments, you get this sort of creativity block. And that creativity block is not going to help you to select, first of all, the right instrument for the right piece of music, but it's also not going to help you to really master that one instrument, because you just get, you just learn the basics, then you move on to another one and another one and another one. The funny part is, or the funny fact is, also in innovation, if you do not have any boundaries, that feels free and it feels good, but you will never get to the bottom of why something is wrong in a particular industry, or what kind of initiatives there already are in that one industry or that one market. You really have to dive in and go deep. And an innovation strategy is going to help define where you should start looking. So what kind of markets, industries, ecosystems you should be active in, and should be, diving in deep. Now, what I'm basically said is summarized here. But based on your innovation strategy, you need to build your own searching and selection process. And the process will then help you define what kind of steps you're going to take when you start searching and when you start selecting. Now, if you do not have any selection criteria, it's super easy to just jump on every hype cycle there is. The AI hype cycle, the blockchain hype cycle, like everything. And I do not say that these technologies are not useful and that you can apply them to a lot, but you shouldn't ride every hype wave. You should ride the right wave that, well, adds a lot of value to your client and to your strategy. Now, within that strategy, we always define a set of rules. And these rules is what we call fundamental and guiding principles. A fundamental principle is, if an innovation, for example, can reach more than 5 clients, it's a go. If it doesn't fit at least 5 clients, then we shouldn't do anything with it. Now, this is a super easy example, but by setting these fundamental principles, it already scapes out a lot of what you will not do and make a very small selection of the stuff that you will do. More on that later, because we've defined some more. The other ones are the sort of guiding principles. Hey, I see a sort of gray area that we've not defined in our fundamental principles, but what are the guiding principles that help us discuss and select the right ones, so the right initiatives. So let's continue.
Just one thing to get it totally clear.
Yep.
The fundamental principles that you're talking about, it should be able to reach 5 clients. That is both from a startup or scale-up perspective, as it could work from an organization perspective.
But the 5 clients is an example, especially in zakelijke dienstverlening. What's the English word there?
Business services.
In business services, thanks a lot. In business services, for example, we see that a lot of solutions are built for just one client, and you want to get it out of that organization and, for example, service 5 to 10 or maybe even 15 clients.
And so not fit to one, but not fit to all, but fit to.
Yeah. And in this case, that fundamental principle is very much applied to that, to one company. It's a fundamental principle for that one company. Now I see that Renato, sorry.
But indeed, that company can be a startup, a scale-up, an organization.
Exactly. Any innovation type of project, and well, that's literally what I will explain in this slide. We basically see 4 tools that help you build innovations for your company. Number 1 is internal venturing. And with internal venturing, what we mean is building your own propositions based on ideation sessions, all sorts of stuff. And I will get in deeper in the next slide. But internal venturing is everything that you do from an internal perspective. Then the second tool is to search and select startups that are in a specific domain or have built a specific technology that is interesting or aligns with your strategy, and you could do some startup investments. The startup investment is particularly there to learn more about the market and to learn more about what the startup is actually trying to do. So you do not have to do the work on your own in an internal venture. And then what we see in practice is that some of these startups later actually got acquired and are being integrated into the corporate. Then the third tool is starting joint ventures. And the joint ventures is 2 bigger companies combining their efforts and building a new proposition. For example, right, the Philips and Douwe Egberts is a very, very outspoken, very outspoken joint venture example there. And then the fourth one, and this is actually quite, for me, this is a very interesting tool, which is M&A, merging and acquisitions. And most of the innovation labs see M&A as a sort of enemy, because there's always the option to just build your own innovation or just acquire a company. But I see them as a tool that can help you in your total innovation strategy. So if you have validated or you have found the right markets and you understand what you want to build there, M&A can help you to accelerate the propositions that you are building. Now, are these 4 tools clear? Because these 4 tools also define how you are going to search for new opportunities.
Anyone anyone has a question about one or several of these 4 tools, or maybe has a 5th tool to suggest, then please share that with us. That's totally fine.
I'm sorry, I needed to pour in some water in my glass, and probably you heard that. I see that Peter is typing a question, so let's quickly wait till that answer is there. If you look at all these tools, this is a graph that actually explains how, how big the development time or how long the development time is and the capital that is required. But what's interesting is that the M&A, for example, is here on the right side. It has a high impact. It's relatively quick, but there is a lot of capital required, a lot. And that makes it way more risky. So if you have an innovation strategy and you just apply the M&A methodology, yes, it can make a high impact, but also reserve a lot of capital. So if you start looking into the market, then this should be one of the tools in your arsenal. The other end of the spectrum, for example, are just creating hackathon challenge prizes and starting resources, which have a very, very low impact, but a very low impact, and are just there to discover new small opportunities. But what we've learned in practice is that these initiatives are not the ones that really move the needle for your company. It should be in there as a sort of activity in the full funnel. A funnel will be shown in a minute.
And why don't they move the needle?
Because it's just about generating ideas, and we do not understand if there's an organization fit, if it fits the real market and technology trends that you want to chase, if there's an actual business model behind the idea that came out of a hackathon. And last but not least, you do not know a lot about the team yet. And for me, team is super important, but more on that in just a few minutes.
And it's not only you stating that the team is key. What I know from all corporate venture capitalists or all other investment teams is that of course they look at the proposition first, but like the team second, or sometimes even the team first and the proposition
team
second.
Traction and technology. That's what you want to look for. So first of all, team. Second of all, is there any traction? Have they gained any clients? And 3, how's the technology? And specifically in that order. Why do I show this graph? It's important to understand what kind of tooling and how to position them in the way you start looking for new opportunities. And I will go, it's this slide, sorry. If you look at your innovation funnel, it's not just one moment that you will need the selection criteria. You need it on multiple occasions. So first of all, if you have your innovation strategy, you start scouting for new ideas, new opportunities. And because we understand in which ecosystems we want to do something, we can also apply a sort of operational plan to start being active. For example, in an AI domain. If AI is very important in your innovation strategy, then maybe you should be more active in the AI hubs in the Netherlands, for example. The government has created a full AI hub system in the Netherlands. So if you are looking for new opportunities, be there. Maybe hire an office at that AI hub. Talk to the people around there, because there will initiate or you will find new ideas or opportunities there. Now, if you're looking, for example, for startups and you want to collaborate with startups, don't be afraid to just set up outreaching campaigns. Just start writing messages to the startups that are interesting for you. And what we see is that quite a lot of corporates want to collaborate with startups, but they think the startup will just come to them. And by just waiting before they send any messages to the corporate, the startup wants to have the corporate as a sort of client and not just partner up and solve problems or issues in that market. And we've seen this happening quite often. And then you've got this process of a startup wanting to sign off a new corporate client. The corporate wants to just collaborate and learn more about what's going on in the market and then potentially even invest. But there's a very big misalignment in what what the relationship will look like. And if you understand what you want to learn from them and what you are specifically looking for in that startup, in your outreach campaigns, you can already mention that and you can already sort of lay out the terms on how you're going to work together and what you want to achieve. And that is super important if you start reaching out to other external companies, specifically startups and scale-ups. And third one is you want to get internal ideas. You want to have eyes and ears in your organization that look and listen to what is going on. And more on that in a minute. Now, when do you start using the criteria and the innovation strategy that you've designed? Well, it's specifically in this phase. It's in phase 4. So you found an opportunity by reaching out or by being active in these ecosystems. You've created a sort of plan A. What are you going to do? What are you going to solve? How much traction do you need to make this a success? Now you understand what is going on. You can double check with all the fundamental and guiding principles that you've made if the selected project is going to be a fit with your innovation strategy. And it's a sort of balanced scorecard. And later in this webinar, I will show you how such a balanced scorecard will work and what the process is there.
If I understand you correctly, Maarten, then to get to that balanced scorecard and to get to that very well fundamental, guided by the fundamental and guiding principle selection process, you need to organize the coincidental encounters. So you don't want to leave it up to coincidence whether you come across a startup or not, or whether as a startup you come across this corporate client or not, but you want to have a lot of activities, so maybe campaigns, to really organize this very first start in this fuzzy front end of the innovation funnel by start organizing it and have a lot of activities there.
Exactly. And it is a continuous process. So scouting is not something that you just start and continue for like 2 months and then you have just one idea and you're going to chase that. Yeah. No, it's a continuous scouting process, especially if you want to transform the company or transform a specific market. It's a continuous building of list. But then once you have that list and you need to select the right projects to start investing in or to start allocating some sort of resources, it's important to use the fundamental and guiding principles to make the right choices. And then, of course, you de-risk again because you first try to test the commercial and technical feasibility. And if that's still there and the proposition is still okay, you have a second selection moment in which you again go back to these fundamental and guiding principles and see if the project still adds value to your strategy and to the company. And by having these sort of 2 moments that you will double check if you're still in line with the strategy, it's also going to help you figure out which projects are really, really going to make an impact for you and the company. So now we know what to look for because we've in the innovation strategy, you've all defined these rules. Where do you start looking? And I've already mentioned it a bit, but where would you typically start your search? Where would you search for new opportunities, new innovative ideas? What is it? Where are you going to start?
So this is the second moment where we would love to hear from you, to hear and read your perspectives. And if you want to elaborate on your answer, then again, feel free to use your mic. That's totally fine. If you want to just use the chat, that's also fine. Oh, we have someone that wants to join us. Erik, where do you typically start your search?
On a trade fair.
On a trade fair. Cool.
Yeah.
Why on a trade fair?
Well, I must say, I am listening to you both. I am so glad that this is not my work. I am a designer, not a manager, and this proves that I'm in the right spot. So this is interesting. I do work at a startup, and I can see you telling me exactly what my CEO is doing. And he has been successful for some companies. So I can see that he's doing a good job. It's nice to see this. But I get the information.
Oh, sorry.
Well, exactly. Try to team up with bigger companies, but not one, but all the ones that are major in the field that we are active in. Trying to get the 5 customers. I think we are investigating 40. Going out to, well, the trade fairs of the end product. So in this case, it's a medical product. So they go to, I think this year, to 2 seminars in America to see if they can go to that market as well. And they will present the product and try to make connections there. So there's the same things, I think, as you suggest. But this is for venturing. And for instance, 1 or 2 major supplier of medical optics would like to have a better contact with us. So that's it's existing companies. We need their technology, but we don't incorporate it in our product. It's a 2-product cooperation.
Yep, perfect.
So I think like that. But
For sharing that
for
with
me
us,
personally,
so honestly.
Yeah. So I am myself. I am a designer. I am on the creative side of things. So I like the hackathons. That's my field.
I know.
But to get inspiration, I would go to a trade fair because I can see the latest products that are available. And usually, I have been at developing companies a lot, even before TMC. You put there what you have just made, and it's just IP protected. Usually, what's not yet on sale. So you are at the forefront of what's possible there.
Yeah. And if for example, visiting trade fairs physically is not possible, what would you do then? So what's your alternative from an industrial product design perspective, as you are?
There is no better thing. There is no second best. So there's only very meager alternatives.
Okay.
And of course you can do online stuff, but I need to feel stuff with my hands. I really need. I always take a bag and I come back with a very heavy backpack always. But it's my turf. So yeah. I'm sorry.
No, feel free to wrap up your sentence.
Yeah, there is one thing on trade fairs that is particularly interesting if you want to find new stuff, and that is usually there is innovation lanes or something like that, where they have like prizes or something by voting from all the people joining there, and they show off the best products you can find. You can see where they are on the fair, and usually you'll find very interesting stuff. For instance, in the plastics fair that was done in the Netherlands last year, which was the first fair after COVID that really was physical. There were 5 products that are ready for the market. It's just waiting for a single change in the law so they can go live. And that is using recycled plastic for foodstuff packaging, which is not allowed at the moment. But they can even do that from seaborne plastics. So you can find it there, and it's not on the market because they cannot sell it yet. So that's why I say go to a trade fair.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your perspective with us, Erik, and also for ending with the cherry on the cake by mentioning the innovation lanes and the prices specifically. Who else wants to share with us, maybe via mic or via using the chat, to elaborate on where do you typically start your search? Maybe anyone else wants to join, and otherwise we will, of course, continue as it's voluntarily to interact. But I see a few answers coming in, or I think a few answers are coming in.
Patents. That's interesting.
Of course, patents.
Yeah.
True. And what I would be interested to know, if you're not a patent expert, like Adonis is, how can someone not be having a specialty in patents also do a search within patents? Is there like an easy access? Maybe. Renato is agreeing on the trade fair.
Last answer, and then I will continue, because I do see something that's interesting here in the answers. The answers so far are pretty much technology driven. And an opportunity is not always technology driven. So it can also be market driven or customer problem driven, and you're going to look for technologies to solve the actual problems in innovation. So that's quite interesting. So the trade fair, literally what was just mentioned, I want to touch the materials and see how the materials work. But then you're already in a sort of prototyping phase to see how you can solve the actual problem. With this in mind, what could you also use as starting points for the search of new opportunities? Now I see some more people typing, and then in, let's say, a minute, I'm going to continue. Quick one. I see that last one is finishing the answer, and then we're going to continue. A challenge in your business environment where you don't have a solution for it yet. Yeah, that is a good one, and it's especially the one that's on the left side from this slide. And what I want to show you in this slide is especially if you're looking for new opportunities, one of the first things that I should always go to is your sales team and your customer support team. They are the ones that actually have a direct touch point with your clients, with your customers. And don't just ask them, hey, what's a new opportunity, or what do you need? But ask them about what types of problems the customers are talking about. And just write down, just start writing what they have to tell you, because there's a great source of ideation input coming out there. And where it doesn't matter which company we are, but everyone forgets this. I still can't figure out why that is, but that's the biggest source of new ideas. The second one is customer success teams, and it's especially from Silicon Valley. This is a very new sort of role. But once someone is onboarded, so they've signed the deal, they are getting onboarded in your company, you can learn a lot of your customer success team on why people are not successfully using your product in the first 1, 2, 3, or 4 weeks. And by clearly listening to them, you can get great new ideas about additional features, or maybe even additional propositions that you should add on your existing product or service. Now, if you're a bit further ahead and you've, for example, created one great solution for one client or one customer, talk to the engineers. Just talk to what have they built? What is it? And that customer request, it's well, the answer of Renato just popping in. That one thing that works perfectly well for one customer can be, well, pulled out of that one operational team and can be a very great example for maybe even 10, 20, or 30 other customers. Now, if you want to start looking for startups, in a specific fields, be super active in these startup ecosystems. And if you, well, just go online and look, for example, to AI startup ecosystem, or a renewable energy startup ecosystem, you will find lots of hubs everywhere in Europe or even the world. And as I mentioned, be active there. The more you're there, the more you start to hear about new startup opportunities. Reach out to them, or just do hyper targeted market scans. There are a lot of agencies that can help you scan a market on a specific technology or a specific industry or even a specific problem, and they will do a market scan of all the types of startups that are solving that one issue or using a specific technology or are active in a specific market. And by just having an overview like that and just seeing all these startup names, reading what they actually do can be a great source of actually selecting or either choosing, hey, but what they're doing, we can just do that on our own. And we do not have to invest in that startup, but we're going to do our own internal venturing there, and later even collaborate with the startup or buy the startup to accelerate that particular idea or proposition. And then later in the funnel, but that especially is later in the funnel, and I will show you where I mean. It's literally once you have it's here. If you have figured out that a problem is worth solving, that there is a market which is a scalable market, and there is a commercial feasibility to actually solving that problem, you are able to really service the first customers, and these customers are happy, then use M&A to just look for similar companies that solve the same issue, have a client base, or have a technology that can actually accelerate you in your innovation efforts, and then start doing M&A searches based on the characteristics that you found within your own validation process. And that's something different than just doing M&A searches to buy companies that might be interesting, but you do not have a 100% clue on how this is going to match in your innovation strategy. So with M&A, first do your own validations, build your own cases, and then use M&As and M&A searches to, well, add companies in the growth of your proposition.
And for example, these startup ecosystems, of course, also have congresses and fairs,
Yep.
but also especially for a perspective from the Netherlands, and probably Belgium and other countries have this as well. In the Netherlands, we have the program of Tech Leap that actually also are open about their deal room. So if you want to know the entire ecosystem of what startups, in what phases, in what technologies or markets are getting traction and are growing and growing, you can't access that online by looking at their deal room or by joining their startup events. So there are definitely some online platforms and online communities next to having official events, of course, where you can have an overview of these ecosystems. And also several investment funds make very well clear in what domains they have invested, in what technologies and in what emerging markets.
Yep.
Right, Dan?
Yeah. Yeah, and for example, go online on AngelList or TechCrunch, or like there are a lot of also online ecosystems that share a lot of what is going on in that specific industry. And then again, keep in mind, if you're looking for technology ideation or new technologies, then that's your target. That's what you want to look for. If you're looking for new types of business models or new ways of servicing clients, that's what you start looking for, and that helps you to focus on the right stuff. Now, what's also a super source of innovation is inventive companies, and I want to specifically well, compare the two because they're also mixed up a lot. With inventiveness, we mean that a specific customer is requesting for a very specific solution. And what the technical teams are building then is like one solution for an existing customer, and the operations and product management team is responsible for building that one solution. And what we see then in practice is, okay, great, you've got a sort of extra project. You've helped a better the client relationship, but it's not something that is then used for multiple occasions. Which means, yes, it was efficient, and yes, there's low risk because the question from the customer is already there, and it immediately gets paid for. But that's not innovation in itself. However, as I mentioned before, it's, in my opinion, one of the best sources of ideation, and from that, building actual innovations. Now, what then is an innovation compared to this? What you're doing in a real innovation is solving customer problems for multiple customers, not just one. And because you have multiple customers, you more people in the organization are responsible for the success of that one proposition or that one new product. And the ROI is then not just one extra project, but it can be a completely new source of income, a new income stream, or even a new tool to get more get more employees because they are interested in the new innovations that you're building. Now, the solution is always proposition driven, and with proposition driven, I mean we promise to solve something. There's a promise that we make to a customer, and that promise is not just delivering a product; it's going to do something in their lives. And compared to an inventive solution, that's just one solution that is there to fix one very specific issue, and that's it. And what we want to build is build new proposition, new promises that completely change the lives of multiple customers. So if you look at this, if you have this in the back of your mind, and you start looking for all the inventive solutions that your company created for one client, then just get it out there, understand and learn what the actual operational teams have created for that one client, and see if it might be an opportunity to start and testing it on multiple occasions at multiple clients. And if that's the case, then start building an actual business model out of it, instead of just having that one solution built, put it on in the refrigerator or in the freezer or whatever, and then just leave it there and stop. We see this happening way too often.
Way too often, it's only 0 to 1,
Yeah.
not 1 to 10 or 1 to 100.
Exactly. And especially with the like the high technology solutions, there's just a very, very big source of ideation, inspiration, and opportunities there. Now, when you start looking for these new opportunities, it's super important to spread out how you do searches. So if you start looking for just optimizations of your current technology, then you're only looking for core innovations. And that's where new technologies come in, but not like or existing technologies that can add a feature. Especially for M&A, this is, M&A in core is a very good they have a very good relationship because it's something that's already there. It's already generating income, and you can use the income streams to just acquire like the second version of the product or the third version of the product. Now, if you're looking for adjacent innovation, so new technologies for the company or new markets for the company, I always like to start with some internal venturing first. And that means start to understand how that market or how that technology actually works. And just by experimenting, just discovering some of the first projects. And then if you understand that, then it's easier to start collaborating with startups, with other companies, because you understand that market more.
Yeah, especially in that adjacent
Innovations.
period,
Yeah.
so in adjacent innovations, I can imagine, as you already mentioned, that collaboration is key. So
Definitely.
if you do ideation or ID generation there, I think collaborative ID generation, which is nothing more than trying to find cool combinations, trying to find new combinations and combining two elements that maybe already exist but not have been combined in such a fit before. That is especially something that's very valuable. And that's by combining different perspectives that you can, yeah, in a very easy way, maybe have a lot of success on a short, mid, or long term, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And the last one is transformational. And with transformational, you're really going to create a completely new market or build new enabling technologies. And the best source there is to look for new patents, collaborate with universities, invest in research projects, because that's where you'll find, well, the new technologies and potential technologies that can disrupt markets. But there, the strategy is to put small investments in these transformational sort of, well, it's not an ecosystem, but arenas in which you can learn more and more about up and coming or new ways to disrupt the way we do stuff. But keep in mind there, it's going to take you 7 to 10 years to really commercialize that and really build new cases.
Yeah, and especially in that transformational side of our area or arena, what I always say is that the best way to have an idea is to share lots of ideas. So to have lots of places where you are connected to, and to be this, and the sooner the better. As the sooner you are connected to the technology, to the research project, or to this, maybe even to be startup, the better. Also because in a very early stage, it's still possible to share openly and have that partnership before everybody starts protecting and or not shutting it down, but securing it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely, and especially on the universities, etc. It's a very good place to be active. What I want to point out is you actually have to build a pipeline of channels to source all these ideas. And the funny fact is, Erik just mentioned it, Erik Niels, like it's thinking like a sales funnel. You put a lot of prospects in, and you know that if you put in 100, 10 are going to get out. In this searching and selecting, your job is to generate lots and lots of ideas and build a backlog of ideas. And once you have that backlog of ideas that has multiple sources that you can select from, it's easier to start applying your selection process. And this is where I think 9 out of 10 companies that we talk to do not have any process in place. But hey, I am curious if you are having your own selection process, or is there no selection process at all incorporated into your company? Very curious to learn from you.
So again, if you want to interact, we're very happy to have you join us at this webinar by really sharing what you think. So the question is, how does your selection process look? And maybe it's a nice fun fact to mention that out of research, it is shown that only one ID out of 1,000 will become a successful commercial innovation. So if Maarten says that you need a lot of ideas to go into that funnel, yes, you do. And luckily, with a good selection, validation and process and the things we all mentioned, maybe you can make that even, maybe you can make that more successful. Maybe you need 1 out of 500 or 1 out of 100. But from research, at least, if you don't do anything, then it's 1 out of 1,000. And that's
a lot.
That's a lot, I would say.
Imagine yourself going through 1,000 ID applications. That's gonna be a harsh job.
Did you actually already prove with BW Ventures whether is it 1 out of?
I think so far, I think I've seen and spoken to over 600 or 700, and we've helped over 100 projects, and out of the 100, like 30 to 40 are actually able to build a sustainable business model and actually make an impact. And then that's not like the 100x ROI, but some of them, I think it's 2 right now that actually are reaching that point. Yeah. Jos mentions that there's no actual or real selection process in place. And it's we see that a lot, right? That there's no selection process in place. It's a sort of gut feeling or gut feeling. Sorry, we just do this. Like what I'm going to show you is for us 4 important things should be in place to select the right initiatives or the right IDs or the right projects. And we created 4 criteria. The organization fit, and the organization fit is how is this new ID going to add value to the company strategy? The market and industry is the ID in the right market or industry if we look at our innovation strategy? For example, if I'm active in the telecom industry, and I've got an ID that is working very well in the, let's say, agri market, the agricultural industry, is that still a match? Is the industry in itself a match, or is the technology that is in there a match? And that's the 3rd criteria, technology. Especially if you're looking for startups and M&A, market and industry is key. If they do not have the right knowledge about the market or the industry, that can be a very big disaster to start collaborating and working together. Now, last one is there a fit based on the business model, or the business model in itself? Does it contribute to where we want to go to? For example, one of the companies in the Netherlands that we're helping, they have a strategy to reach about 60,000 new subscribers to their not their business model, but to their sort of social goal. Now, if the project that they've selected is never going to have 60,000 subscribers, but for example 100, then stop. Don't even put time and energy in there. Now,
we got one interesting answer from Peter, actually pretty fitting this slide very well, as he mentioned the selection process that he uses. So maybe you can just quickly elaborate.
Yeah, what do we solve with it, and for who? Is it aligned with our company strategy, and do we have expertise for this new ID within our company? Well, that's actually 3 very good questions. And what I'm about to show you, and I'm going to switch screens here. I'm going to show you an Excel sheet that we actually built for our customers. Now, bear with me, it's in Dutch, so I'm going to explain in a voiceover what it is in English. But what you see here is one of the first selection processes, of one of the first steps in the selection process. Now, what this is a list of questions that is important to fill in by the one that actually generated the ID. And yes, there's a lot of questions, but these questions are super important for later steps in the process. So first of all, what's important for this particular case is the safety of the people that work in this company is super important. So if does this new ID contribute to the safety of the people that work in our organization on a scale from 1 to 5? So let's, for example, put in 3 here. Then if you look at all these blocks, this is all about safety. Then this is all about, can I employ more billable hours to that one client, which in some cases can be questionable if you talk about innovation, but this is a very important criteria for them. And the important thing is the product owner or the ID owner is just going to put in answers to all these questions on a scale from 1 to 5. And these are then, again, this is about organization fit. This is about business model fit. This is about the technology. And this is about the maturity of the ID itself. How mature is the ID? Do you actually have paying clients? Do you have a validated customer problem, etc.? And then last, but not least, is there already someone in the organization that understands what's going on there? Now, this is the only thing that the ID owner puts in. And this is from an internal perspective. If you are looking for startups and you had the first conversation with a startup, you are the one that actually fills in this form. It's just to have a sort of structure and see how well it performs compared to the strategy. Now, then we build this sort of dashboard, and it's going to state, okay, how well do you score at all the fundamental principles? Is it all 70, 80, 80, or 60, for example? And then how well do we score on the guiding principles? Now, again, if you truly want to understand what the fundamental and guiding principles are, go back to the innovation strategy webinar. And then because we've recorded this, you can also watch this again or rewatch this. But what you see is on these 4 criteria, we're going to see how well it matches with the strategy. And we can even, but I need to answer more questions here. We can even see where on the innovation ambition matrix this idea is going to fit.
So whether it's core, adjacent, or transformational, right?
Exactly. Now, bear with me because now the real meat is going to start. And I'm not going to go in specifically through all the questions, but I'm going to quickly switch back to the next slide. And I'm not going to put this full screen. But you've seen what the ID owner is putting in. Like you've seen how the ID owner is looking at the ID themselves. Now, what we typically install is an innovation committee or an innovation or an investment board. And what they are going to do is fill in how they agree on what the ID initiator put in there. So, for example, we mentioned that this new ID has a very low risk profile. The only thing that they need to do is state, I fully agree, I fully disagree, and you can put your comments in because that's how we do, the last selection round there. Now we do that on organization fit, the technology fit, the markets fit, and the team and business model fit. And based on that, we can very quickly filter out like the first 100 to, for example, the 20 that are worth discussing. Because if you only reach like 30%, it doesn't make sense to continue. What we typically say, if you score about 70 to 75%, then it's worth talking about. And it's worth discussing if you want to put them in the next step in your innovation funnel. One crucial, like super important thing, if you work with startups, there's one thing that is not in this Excel sheet, and that is how do you scan the actual team? And what we use is we use a sort of HR tooling to to select the people or to test the people that are in an innovation team. And I think that is something that everyone should use. Use tooling to actually scan the individuals in a startup team, and based on that, see how they perform as a team, how they perform as an individual, and actually add value to the success of that startup. Because it's not just the proposition, it's the people that you invest in, and the people should validate and scale up that particular proposition. And it's great to first have a first conversation and to have a second conversation, but you're totally biased if you really want to select the right people for that project. And I think there are quite a lot of tools out there. We use a very specific one, and we build our own profiles to see how they match. But especially if you work with startups, that's a crucial point. If you're working in a corporate, then a corporate environment, then first make sure that the proposition is worth pursuing. And then you start to form the actual innovation team that is going to, actually do the validations and build the proposition. The second step that you need to do is also select the right team members. And also in that case, you're going to use like scanning tooling to see if they actually have the right mindset, the right skills, or the right reasoning patterns to go through such an innovation, and to go through such a process. Now,
we actually received a question.
Yeah.
A question from Renato. Wondering, do you see a risk of having so many steps, filters, and questions that they can intimidate ID generation or create roadblocks for innovation?
Good question. There's always this sort of balancing act between bureaucracy and innovation. But at first, it feels like you're completely blocking out everything because there are so many questions. However, if you want to successfully build that innovation, and even in 5 years, it's still going to align with strategy, and you still understand why you allocated the right capital, and see if you went through the right steps, it's vitally important to have that sort of process in. And to be quite honest here, for just the ID initiator, that form can be filled in within 5 minutes. If we open up a new like startup acceleration program, this is just part of the application process. They apply to receive some kind of investment or to receive some kind of collaboration partner. This is the steps that they need to go through. And based on that, we can have an actual conversation on why they need to help and where they need to help. For an internal member, if they do not want to just answer a sort of 5 to 10 minute questionnaire, then how motivated are you really to make a success out of that idea? Because if that's not in there, then probably if you need to sign the first client, or you need to break through all the problems that you will see during, you know, the ideation process, I don't think that will be a very big success. And I'm putting it mildly here. Now let's go back into like this selection process. You've seen the ID owner filling in a sheet. Then you've seen what an innovation committee will do to, you know, to figure out if it's a real fit with the strategy and with the road you want to go to as a corporate. Then if that is put in, then the committee will come with an advice, and that advice is based on all these principles, and that advice can be presented to C-level or management. And the advice that they give is not, it's not like how do you say that? It's not, the advice that they give is not the actual decision, but it has a very, very big influence on the actual decision that is being made by the C-level to allocate the right resources. Then that output is getting into an innovation team that then starts to validate all the crucial points. And now keep in mind, there's two like important selection steps. It's the first one to just start. And with the start, in some companies, we do not advise to already let the innovation committee look at just the first proposition. It's just the innovation leader, and that's it. And once you are through the first selection moment, and I'll show you again what I'm talking about. So here is the first selection. It's just all these ideas coming in, and you think it's a project worth pursuing. Then once you figured out that there is a commercial feasibility on this project and there's a technical feasibility in the project, you have a second selection moment. And then in some cases, it's way more important to have this process in place, because then it's about putting in the actual dollars or the actual euros, like ranging from 250K up to 1 million. And then you want to have this process in place to actually get everyone on board and have all the right stakeholders on board. And then you've got this sort of continuous feedback loop on what is going on and seeing that you are actually selecting the right projects that are aligned with your innovation strategy. Long answer to your question, Renato, but I hope it gives the right answers. For me, that was the last in-depth slide. Are there any questions for now, or any comments or any experiences that you still want to share?
At least one feedback coming in. Renate is agreeing your answer, or is happy with your answer, although it was a long answer, but it was a good one.
Perfect.
So he says, yep, thanks. And then, yeah, of course, I mentioned it in the chat a few times that if you have a question, a suggestion, or doubt, a doubt or something that you want to share with either Maarten or myself, you're very welcome to share that with us using the chat or using your mics. And if there is none, then as I promised you a webinar series, we will continue to the next webinar, and that we will host on Monday, the 27th of June. And in that webinar, we will focus on how to apply Lean Startup for hardware solutions. So we're very warmly welcome you there. As promised, you will receive the slides of today, you will receive the recording of today, and also will receive the recording of the innovation strategy webinar that was previous to this webinar, so that you have access to all content, as we also believe in sharing is the best way to have this spread further. I do see in the reactions of people that indeed Erik Niels has raised his hand. So you want to share something with us, Erik? Feel free, Erik Niels, to join.
Yes. First of all, I advise you to make a smarter description in the invitation, because their definitions of idea and definitions of this process are highly different in my world as in your managing world. So on the other hand, I might not have joined if it was more clear in the beginning. Now, the second thing is, I would really like to elaborate with Martin on my own project, because I think that I am building what you said. You have to stock on ideas, and that's my part of the process. And I have a stock of ideas, and I call it the enabler.
Yeah.
And that's Erik Niels' enabler. And I use it in a way that is interesting, but I would like to see if you can give me advice so that I have a better fit with all the other people in this room that are working at the customer.
Yeah.
To look at it from my side. And with that, I think it could be interesting to also, translate this, exactly what you just said, to engineers.
Happy to
Because there is-
catch up and discuss that one time, Erik Niels.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
let's take that
Thanks for
offline.
the initiative. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Great
We will.
addition. Love it.
Let's see.
Anything else? I don't see anything else so far. Yeah, then in that case, as I see that everybody comes from the Europe region, I would like to wish you a lovely evening. Enjoy yourselves, and we hope to see you at the next webinar. Of course, you will receive the invites just as the content of today and the recording. So thanks for today, and we'd love to see you back next time. In case you have any other questions in the meantime, then also feel free to reach out to either Maarten or myself. Luckily, we're very friendly, accessible human beings, so no need to hesitate in reaching out, just as Erik Niels just did. Lovely evening, and hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.